Welcome, dear traveller, to a night unlike any other. The air grows crisp, the winds whisper with secrets, and the world falls into a deep, quiet anticipation. As Halloween night wraps itself around the earth, the witching hour approaches, a moment so steeped in mystery that the very fabric of time seems to hold its breath. This is the hour when the boundary between the living and the spirit world becomes thinnest, and the whispers of the unseen begin to stir. It is an ancient time, one wrapped in power, reverence and stillness. In the hushed embrace of midnight, magic hums through the air like a forgotten song, and the dead are said to return, stepping lightly between worlds. Beneath the cold, watchful gaze of the moon, spirits awaken, their presence felt in the flicker of candlelight and the rustle of the wind. Tonight, we venture into the heart of this hour. It is a time when the veil that separates the living from the dead grows faint, allowing the realms to briefly touch and the magic of Halloween to unfold. The rituals, the spirits, the mysteries, they all converge in these sacred moments. It is a time when the earth itself seems to pause, as if waiting for something to cross the threshold. The world outside your window may seem still, but if you listen closely, you might begin to hear the call of the witching hour. It's the hidden, sacred time of Halloween, a time when the magic stirs beneath the quiet surface and the spirits of the past come to greet the living. Let the silence of this hour surround you. Let it guide you into the unseen, where time slips gently and the darkness wraps around you like a soft, familiar cloak. For tonight, we journey to the heart of Halloween's most mysterious, most sacred time, the witching hour. And should you find peace in these quiet journeys, let your curiosity lead you back here, where the secrets of the night are always waiting to be revealed. The journey begins as midnight calls. Chapter 1. The Quiet Before the Veil. As the evening draws near on Halloween night, the world seems to pause, its rhythms softened by a quiet anticipation. There is a stillness that falls over the land, like a breath held just before the world shifts into something else. The trees seem to whisper among themselves, their limbs shifting gently in the cool breeze, and the moon, full and bright, climbs steadily higher in the sky. It is as though the very earth knows what is about to unfold and waits in hushed reverence for the arrival of the witching hour. The thin veil between the living and the dead, so long a part of ancient traditions, grows ever thinner as the night deepens. Halloween, the most sacred of nights, holds its own special place in the eternal cycle of the seasons. It marks the final day of the harvest, a time when the living honour the dead and the world of the unseen presses gently against the world we know. The hour is nearly upon us. The witching hour approaches, but not yet. For now, the world rests in the quiet before it. It is said that Halloween, or Samhain as it was once known, is a time when the spirits of those who have gone before can walk freely among the living. On this night, the souls of the departed are believed to return, slipping into the world of the living in search of familiar places, loved ones, and those left behind. But before this ancient tradition unfolds fully, there is a period of quietude, a lull in time where the earth itself seems to hold its breath in the fading twilight. It is a moment suspended, poised on the edge of the supernatural, where the boundaries of this world and the next are softened by the darkening sky. As the hours pass, the sky slowly darkens and the winds shift. The world seems to sleep under the gentle sway of the approaching night, but beneath that quiet there is an undeniable hum. It is as though something stirs just beneath the surface of things, too delicate to be seen, but undeniable all the same. And in this quiet, it is easy to imagine that the spirits, already making their way from the other side, pause in their journey, waiting for something. The air grows heavier, not in a threatening way, but as though it carries a greater weight, like the pressure of an unseen presence just beyond the horizon. The moon, a cold and watchful eye, begins to cast its pale light over the land, stretching long shadows that reach across the earth. These shadows, deep and thick, seem to come alive in the night, moving in a way that cannot be entirely explained. They seem to breathe with the pulse of the land itself, like living things, waiting for the first stirrings of magic to fill the air. And though the streets may appear empty, there is a subtle shift in the atmosphere, an expectation. The air, which had been sharp with the chill of autumn, now carries a strange warmth. It is as if the very night is ready to welcome the unknown, preparing to fold the living and the dead into one harmonious rhythm. The moment when the witching hour will take its first breath is drawing nearer, but not yet. For now, we're here in the quiet, standing at the edge of what is known and what is not, between the waking world and the unseen realm. The spirits too wait, drawn to this place where they can cross over. They stand, invisible but close, their presence faint yet undeniable. They are as much a part of this time as the moon, the trees, the earth beneath our feet. They do not speak yet, but we can feel them, the way the night holds its breath before a sigh. The witching wind stirs as if touched by something unseen, rustling the leaves in a whispered conversation that can only be heard by those attuned to the stillness of the world. The earth itself seems to murmur in anticipation, as though waiting for a signal, a time, a moment when everything will change. The quiet before the veil is an invitation to listen closely to the world, its hum, its whispers, its secrets carried on the wind. In these moments, there is no rushing, no urgency. There is only the waiting, the stillness that precedes the unfolding of something far greater than can be understood. For the witching hour is not just an event in time, it is a point of transition, a place where worlds meet, where the past and the present collide in an ethereal dance of memories and spirits, where the living are briefly touched by those who came before. It is during this quiet pause that the ancient magic of Halloween is reborn each year. There is something timeless about it, the way the night carries within it a memory of all that has come before, of the rituals that once marked this hour, and the hearts that beat with the same pulse today. The quiet before the veil is not simply an absence of sound. It is the space between worlds, the point where one moment ends and another begins. It is a space that holds the weight of untold stories, memories of ancestors long gone, and the quiet stirring of spirits who are only waiting for their moment to step into the world once more. The air, thick with this silent anticipation, seems to pulse with energy, as though the very particles of the world are holding their breath. It is during this time that one can feel, perhaps more than ever, that the veil between the living and the dead is thinner than it has ever been. And yet, even as the night prepares to reveal its secrets, the world remains still. The quiet stretches on like a long, slow breath, drawing us deeper into the space where time bends and the veil is about to part. The moon rises higher, its silver light casting long shadows that seem to stretch endlessly, as if they too are preparing for something that will soon arrive. But for now, it is enough to simply be here, in this moment of waiting, where everything is possible and nothing is yet certain. The witching hour has not yet begun, but its presence is already felt, like a soft whisper in the wind, a promise of something to come. As the evening deepens and the shadows lengthen, we are drawn nearer to the hour that will change everything. In the distance, the first faint sound of the night's magic begins to stir. It is faint, like the hum of something far away, but it is there, just beyond the edge of perception. It is the signal that the witching hour is near. But not yet. Not yet. For now, we wait in the quiet, and in this stillness, we listen. And soon, as the first stroke of midnight approaches, the world will unfold, the veil will part, and the witching hour will come alive with the echoes of the past, the whispers of spirits, and the magic that lives between the worlds. But for now, we simply listen, as the night carries us toward the edge of what is to come. Chapter 2. Midnight's Chime, the Devil's Hour. As the last rays of twilight fade and the moon takes its rightful place in the sky, the world moves into a new realm, an unseen world, one that pulses with the kind of magic only the darkness can carry. It is the hour when the earth and the heavens seem to breathe together, when the line between the living and the dead is blurred, and when everything that has been quiet for so long is stirred into movement. Midnight. The witching hour has arrived. At the stroke of midnight, the atmosphere seems to shift, a subtle change in the air that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand ever so slightly on end. In this moment, the world of the living seems to hold its breath, suspended between the waking and the unseen. Midnight is often called the Devil's Hour, for it is believed that at this very moment the forces of darkness grow most potent. The hour is said to belong to the supernatural, the place where demons, witches, and spirits converge. It is the very core of Halloween's dark magic. But the Devil's Hour is not merely a time of evil or mischief. It is an hour of balance, a moment when the universe itself stands on the edge of two worlds. It is neither wholly light nor dark. It is a liminal space where nothing is fixed and everything is in flux. The air is dense, thick with the presence of things unseen, but also strangely pregnant with potential. Midnight is not the time for finality, but for beginning again, starting anew, where the rules that govern the living world are momentarily forgotten. It is in these moments that the boundaries between life and death begin to soften. As the clock strikes, those who have crossed over into the other side, be they spirits of ancestors, lost souls, or restless beings, begin their long, silent march between realms. The dead are said to stir most powerfully at midnight, when the veil between their world and ours is at its thinnest. They are neither here nor there, but suspended in a space just beyond reach, moving freely without the constraints of time or the limitations of the earthly world. In the stillness that fills the air, you might feel the faintest of whispers, carried not by the wind, but by the very threads that bind this world to the next. It is said that if you listen closely, you can hear the voices of the departed, their words drifting like smoke between the cracks of reality, too faint to be caught but too strong to be ignored. These voices are not necessarily frightening. They're often just memories, fragments of the past, like the soft rustle of a forgotten letter being opened after years of silence. But in these whispers lies the essence of all that has come before, the unseen threads of history, love, and loss that continue to bind the living to the dead. The magic of midnight is subtle, but potent, for in this sacred space time itself begins to fold and bend, moving not in straight lines, but in circles. It is no coincidence that many cultures around the world associate midnight with both fear and reverence. The very idea of midnight carries with it the weight of transition, the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. Midnight is both the point of darkness and the first glimpse of light, the shadow of what has passed and the promise of what is to come. The Devil's Hour is the time when witches are said to gather, when their most powerful spells are cast, when the rituals of the past and present are woven together into something more than just magic. Witches, both ancient and modern, understand the potency of this time. It is the moment when their craft can achieve its greatest heights, when the veil is at its weakest, and the energy of the unseen world can be harnessed. To be a witch in the witching hour is to stand between two worlds, holding the delicate balance of creation and destruction, light and dark, life and death. Perhaps, in the stillness of the night, you can imagine what it might have been like to stand among them, gathered in the shadows of the moon, hands raised in silent incantation, speaking the words that could bind the elements to their will. These gatherings, known as Sabbaths, were thought to be moments of immense power, where witches could invoke spirits, speak with the dead, and commune with powers far greater than the human mind could comprehend. These Sabbaths, often held at midnight, were feared and revered, as their power was thought to be both a blessing and a curse. But not all who gathered in the witching hour were witches, nor were they always dark forces. Beneath the gaze of the moon, the boundaries between all beings, human and otherworldly, are blurred. In this space of heightened sensitivity, the living too may feel drawn toward the magic of the hour. Many still believe that midnight is the best time to call upon the spirits of loved ones who have passed to seek their guidance or their blessing. The quiet magic of midnight offers an invitation, a chance for connection with what lies beyond, a reminder that though the world of the living may seem solid and real, it is but one layer in a much larger tapestry. As the hour unfolds, time seems to lose its familiar shape. Clocks may tick, but their steady rhythm becomes less certain, as though the passage of time itself is slipping through our fingers. It is said that those who have walked the earth before us can move through this world as they please during the witching hour, free from the confines of time and place. They slip between shadows, invisible yet present, watching, listening, waiting. Their presence is not always felt with the senses, but more often with the heart. You might find yourself suddenly overcome with the memory of a long-lost loved one, or feel a shiver up your spine as if someone just walked past you. These are the subtle signs that the spirits of the witching hour are near, that they have crossed over once again, just for this fleeting moment. And yet, amid all this stillness and subtle movement, the hour itself feels heavy. It is not a time for celebration or noise, but for reflection. Midnight is a space where everything exists but nothing is fully realized. The shadows stretch far and wide, casting their long fingers into the corners of the earth. But they do not overwhelm. Instead, they invite you to pause, to take a breath, and to listen closely. In this quiet there is a wisdom, a knowledge that is ancient and untold. It is not just the whisper of spirits, but the pulse of the earth itself drawing us closer to what lies beneath the surface of our world. As the seconds tick by, the night seems to stretch out endlessly before us. Time becomes malleable, a fluid current that pulls us deeper into the heart of Halloween's magic. The witching hour, so full of mystery, of ancient power, of magic that flows through the air like a forgotten song, is upon us. And as it unfolds, you will find that the hour, like the night itself, is not something to fear. It is something to embrace, something to feel within the very core of your being. For as midnight chimes and the witching hour unfolds, the world becomes a different place. It is a place where the unseen is seen, where the boundaries between the living and the dead slip away, and where the secrets of the earth are whispered softly to those who are willing to listen. And as the hour deepens, we will journey further still, through shadows, whispers, and the quiet stirring of spirits, as the night and the magic of Halloween come alive. But the night is young, and the hour still stretches ahead. The world is shifting, slowly, gently, and with each passing moment, the magic that fills the air grows deeper. The witching hour has arrived, but it's only just beginning. Chapter 3: Witches' Sabbaths and the Gathering Darkness. As midnight fades into the deeper hours of Halloween night, the world seems to embrace its own stillness, but within that quiet and undercurrent of energy pulses. It is here, in this sacred space, where the witches' Sabbaths are said to unfold, a tradition so intertwined with Halloween that it feels as though the very night is an act of ritual itself. The Sabbaths, a gathering of witches from across time and tradition, are believed to take place in the deepest hours of the witching hour, when the powers of the unseen world are at their strongest, and the spirits of the dead stir most actively. To understand the Sabbaths, one must first understand the ancient rituals and beliefs surrounding the practice of witchcraft. In the days long before modern Wicca and contemporary witchcraft, there was a time when the very act of being a witch was shrouded in fear and reverence. Witches were seen as powerful figures, often feared, sometimes revered, but always mysterious. It was said that during the witching hour, these practitioners of the unseen forces could invoke spirits, cast powerful spells, and even commune with the very forces of nature itself. The idea of the Sabbath, a gathering of witches to perform dark rites, has roots in both ancient witchcraft and later witch trials. In medieval Europe, it was believed that witches would convene in secret, often in the wild, far away from the eyes of the living. These meetings were not simply acts of defiance, but sacred rituals where witches performed acts of magic, seeking to harness the hidden powers of the world. The Sabbaths were said to occur most powerfully on Halloween, when the veil between realms was thin and the spirits of the dead were closest. The most well-known of these Sabbaths was the Black Sabbath, the night when witches were thought to engage in rituals of great power, summoning spirits, demons, and the devil himself. In the lore of many cultures, it was said that witches could reach beyond the mortal realm during these meetings, creating pacts with the devil, exchanging their souls for forbidden knowledge or untold power. On Halloween, the air would grow thick with their incantations, their hands raised in silent invocation to the spirits of the unseen. But the true nature of the Sabbaths is more complex than the folklore suggests. These gatherings were not merely occasions for darkness. They were deeply spiritual events where witches sought to connect with the forces of nature, the earth, and the cosmos. Witches believed that the rituals performed during the Sabbath were a way of honouring the ancient cycles of life, death, and rebirth, invoking the power of the seasons, the moon, and the spirits that inhabited the land. In these dark hours, when the night feels as though it stretches on forever, the witches are said to gather not just to call on the dark forces, but to seek communion with something more ancient, the primal energies of the earth. The Sabbath is not simply a place for magic, but for understanding, a moment when the witch, by gathering the elements of the world around her, could touch something beyond the tangible. Perhaps, in the stillness of this hour, you might picture these ancient gatherings. Witches dressed in dark robes, their hands raised high to the sky, their chants flowing like the wind through the trees. In the far distance, the crackling of a fire can be heard, casting long shadows on the earth. The wind stirs with the weight of their words, carrying with it the quiet power of the spirits they seek to summon. Beneath the watchful gaze of the moon, the witches gather in secret, united by their desire to tap into the forces of magic that have always been part of the world but remain hidden from most. But as the Sabbaths are steeped in magic, they are also linked to something more dangerous, the fear of the unknown. In centuries past, the idea of witches convening at midnight was often tied to the darker aspects of magic, the summoning of demons, the performing of necromantic rites, and the sacrificing of animals or even humans. These rites were believed to bring power, but at a cost. It is no wonder that the Sabbaths became associated with the devil's hour, for the witches' practices were often framed as acts of rebellion against divine order, rituals that threatened to upend the natural world. The fear surrounding these gatherings grew so great that during the witch trials, many believe that witches used Halloween's magic to draw strength from the devil himself. The connection between the Sabbath and Halloween is not coincidental. Both mark a time when the living are closest to the spirits, when the forces of nature and the dead are drawn together, and when the world feels especially fragile, like it might slip between the cracks of what we know. Yet, even in the darker stories surrounding the Sabbaths, there remains a sense of reverence, a respect for the unknown and the unexplainable. The witches' ceremonies, though sometimes feared, were seen by many as attempts to understand the mysteries of existence. In an age where death was ever present, where the spirits of ancestors were honoured and revered, the witches sought to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. They were not simply calling on spirits to do their bidding, but seeking to honour the unknown forces that shaped their lives. The power of the Sabbaths is not only in their rituals, but in the deep connection they offer between humans and the natural world. By honouring the rhythms of the earth and the cycles of life, death, and rebirth, witches would seek to draw down the power of the seasons and the unseen forces that bind the world together. It was said that, at the Sabbaths, time itself would blur. Both the living and the dead would exist side by side, as the spirits of the past intertwined with the living, their whispers joining the chants that filled the air. There was no division between the worlds. They were one, united in their mysteries and their power. But as the hour deepens and the witches' spells grow stronger, so too do the dangers that lie in wait. For every ritual, every chant, every invocation draws the witch closer to the very edge of the unknown. They are treading a path that once crossed may never be undone. The darkness that fills the air during the witching hour is not simply the absence of light, but a presence, something ancient, primal, and sometimes malevolent. It is said that in the deepest moments of the Sabbaths, when the magic is at its most potent, the witch must tread carefully, lest she fall prey to the very powers she seeks to control. The Sabbaths, then, are both a sacred communion and a test of faith, of strength, and of the witch's ability to navigate the boundaries between life, death, and magic. And as Halloween night wears on, and the witching hour moves into its deepest, darkest moments, the witch's power grows. They are not merely casting spells or summoning spirits. They are standing at the edge of the unseen world, ready to step into the unknown and to unlock the mysteries that lie beyond the veil. But as the spirits gather, so too does something else stir. The witch must remain vigilant, for the darkness of the hour is not something to be taken lightly. The power of the Sabbaths, so long associated with Halloween's witching magic, has both its wonders and its dangers. As the clock continues to tick into the night, the veil grows thinner, and the boundary between the known and the unknown fades into shadows. And so, in the stillness of the witching hour, the Sabbaths continue, casting their ancient magic into the night, their power waiting to unfold in the quiet beneath the stars. Chapter 4. Spirits of the Thin Veil. As the night deepens and the witching hour stretches its quiet fingers across the landscape, something ancient stirs, something that has long been part of the fabric of Halloween. The boundary between the living and the dead continues to thin as the restless spirits of the departed begin their gentle march into the world of the living. There is a peculiar sensation that fills the air, as though the night itself is aware of these subtle movements, a calm anticipation that hums beneath the stillness. Halloween night has always been a time when the spirits of the dead are believed to return. This idea, so deeply woven into the traditions and beliefs of countless cultures, finds its fullest expression in the witching hour. When the clock strikes midnight, it is not just witches and demons that awaken. The souls of those who have passed, both kind and malevolent, step lightly across the threshold of the world of the living, crossing through the thin veil that separates life from death. In the time of Samhain, the ancient Celtic festival that predates Halloween, it was believed that on this night, the veil between the worlds, the boundary between the living and the dead, was at its thinnest. Spirits, ancestors, and the restless souls of the departed could roam freely among the living, seeking to complete unfinished business, reunite with loved ones, or simply make their presence known. The Irish believed that during Samhain, the spirits of the dead returned home, and people would light bonfires and carve turnips to ward off unwanted spirits. Yet, not all spirits were malevolent. The connection between the living and the dead was seen as sacred, with many families honouring their departed loved ones by leaving offerings for them. But Halloween night, and specifically the witching hour, is not simply a time for the spirits of the beloved departed to return. It is also the time when darker spirits, those who never found peace or who were wronged in life, are believed to emerge from the shadows. The malevolent spirits that have lingered in the darkness, unable or unwilling to cross over, become more active during this time. These wandering souls, filled with unresolved anger or grief, are drawn to the living. It is said that they come to seek retribution, or simply to haunt the world that they left behind. The energy in the air shifts as the spirits make their way into the mortal realm, sliding between worlds with ease. For those attuned to the supernatural, there is a certain charge in the atmosphere, a sensation of being watched, of being not quite alone. The wind seems to carry an unfamiliar weight, and shadows in the corners of your vision flicker, as if something or someone is lingering just out of sight. This is not merely the shift from light to dark, but the subtle entrance of the unseen, the crossing of a boundary that only the most sensitive of souls might perceive. There is a whispering presence that fills the stillness, like the soft rustle of pages turning in an old book, or the echo of long-forgotten words. These whispers are the voices of the spirits, both loved and lost, whose stories have yet to be told, whose memories have yet to be honoured. Some believe that during the witching hour, these spirits cannot speak aloud in our world, but their thoughts, their unvoiced words drift to us on the wind, a silent transmission between realms. In the calm of Halloween night, their voices are heard in the flicker of candlelight, in the rustling of leaves, in the quiet hum of the night's rhythm. They are here and yet not here. In this moment, the living world and the world of the dead are woven together, as if held by an invisible thread. As midnight lingers and the hour deepens, the spirits move more freely, slipping through the shadows drawn toward the living. They may not be seen with the naked eye, but their presence is undeniable. The air becomes charged with their energy, as though the earth itself is reverberating with the quiet hum of their movement. Cold spots may arise in the room, a sudden draught where no wind exists. Flickers of light might seem to dance in the corner of your eye, vanishing as quickly as they appear. It is said that in the witching hour the spirits are less bound by the physical laws of our world, free to move and interact in ways that they cannot at any other time. The nature of these spirits varies. Some are gentle, seeking only to connect with those they loved, to share a final message or to receive a final farewell. These are the benevolent spirits, who walk among us with a quiet grace, offering a soft reminder of the bond that remains between the living and the dead. It is in these moments that people often report a sudden feeling of warmth, or a flash of memory that rises unexpectedly. Perhaps the laughter of a long-lost friend, or the comforting embrace of a loved one. These spirits may not reveal themselves directly, but their presence lingers like a soft touch against the soul. Then there are the spirits that linger in the shadows, those whose unfinished business keeps them tethered to the mortal realm. These are the restless souls, often trapped in cycles of pain or rage. They may come seeking answers, or simply to fulfill their need for resolution. It is said that they are drawn to places of great emotion, homes where they once lived, graves where they were buried, or even places where great tragedy once occurred. They do not return for kindness, but for closure. These spirits move through the world with a sense of urgency, their movements, sometimes abrupt, their energy unsettling. It is believed that they are the most active during the witching hour, when the veil between the living and the dead is at its most fragile, and they can move freely between worlds. There is a certain melancholy beauty in the return of the spirits. Though some may be filled with sorrow, others are comforted simply by the act of returning to a world they once knew. It is a bittersweet reunion, marked not by joy or fear, but by the serenity that comes with knowing that the distance between the living and the dead is, at least for one night, bridged. As Halloween night stretches on, the hour deepens, and the world slips further into the realm of the unseen. The spirits become more numerous, their presence more pronounced. Perhaps you begin to feel it too, the soft pull of something familiar, the gentle tug of memories long past, or the sudden awareness that you're no longer alone in the quiet. It is as though the world around you has shifted just slightly, the air now filled with the weight of those who have walked this earth before you. And yet, not all spirits are drawn to the living with kindness or love. As the witching hour progresses, there is a sense of darkness that begins to rise, as if the spirits, once gentle, are now joined by others who are filled with fear or rage. The restless souls grow stronger, their presence heavier. They are shadows, now more distinct in their form, feeding off the very energy that pulses through the night. They may not be malevolent, but they are unsettling. They have their reasons for lingering here, reasons that cannot be easily explained. Some say they are the spirits of those who are wronged, the vengeful souls who could not rest until their voices were heard. These spirits do not seek the living's company, but instead seek retribution or closure. As the night draws on, the boundary between the living and the dead grows even thinner. These spirits continue to walk among us, moving between worlds with the ease of those who have long been forgotten. But even as they roam, they leave behind something more than a whisper. They leave the sense that all of time, life, death, and everything in between is, at its core, one continuous thread. As the clock ticks toward the early hours of the morning, the witching hour begins to draw to a close. The spirits begin their slow retreat, returning to the shadows where they dwell, leaving the world of the living once more. But the air still hums with their energy, and as the veil begins to close, it feels as though their presence lingers just a moment longer, as if to remind us that the world of the dead is always close by, always just a breath away. And in this final whisper, we are left with the quiet truth of Halloween, that on this night we are never truly alone. The spirits of the thin veil are always with us, moving silently through the dark, touching us with memories, with whispers, and with the enduring power of the past. Chapter 5. The Secret of the Midnight Wind. As the witching hour deepens and the moon climbs higher in the sky, something stirs in the air. It is subtle at first, a gentle stir of the night breeze, but soon it becomes something more. A presence, a weight, a quiet force that seems to move with purpose. The midnight wind is a well-known phenomenon in the folklore of many cultures, a mysterious force that moves through the world in ways both seen and unseen. On Halloween night, it is said to be charged with the energy of the spirits, carrying with it the whispers of the dead, the secrets of the unseen, and the silent hum of the night's magic. In many traditions, the wind is not simply air in motion. It is the carrier of messages, a silent messenger between the realms of the living and the dead. The wind has always been considered a link to the supernatural, a medium through which spirits travel, a channel for the forces that shape the world. The ancient Celts, for instance, believed that the wind was a carrier of spirits. On Samhain night, when the veil between the worlds was thinnest, the wind was said to carry the voices of the departed, guiding them on their journey back to the afterlife, or carrying messages to the living. The wind became a conduit, a bridge between the living world and the spirit world. As the clock strikes midnight on Halloween, the wind changes. It picks up speed, rustling the dry leaves that line the gutters and sweeping the streets with an eerie, soft whistle. It is no longer a mere breeze, but something more. The midnight wind carries with it an almost tangible energy, as though it has absorbed the magic of the hour. In this sacred time, the wind is said to have the power to carry secrets, to carry messages between the realms. The spirits of the dead, having crossed the veil, whisper to those who can hear. The wind listens, carries their words, and delivers them to those open to receiving them. It is in the quiet hours of Halloween that the midnight wind is at its most powerful. Those who have lived with the old traditions know that this is a time to listen carefully, for the wind may carry more than just the sound of the leaves. In some cultures, it was believed that spirits would speak through the wind, their words carried on a whisper that only the attentive could hear. These whispers were not always direct messages, but more subtle, fragments of something larger, stories, memories, regrets, and sometimes warnings. The wind, in its ever-changing motion, could carry the voice of a loved one long gone, or a distant memory that has found its way back into the world of the living. As the wind shifts and moves through the trees, it is said that it carries the energies of the earth itself, the spirits of the soil, the roots of ancient trees, the rustling of grasses that have borne witness to centuries of change. The midnight wind is not just a breath of air, but a presence, a silent witness to the passage of time. On Halloween night, the wind whispers not only the voices of the dead, but the history of the earth itself, carried in its movement through the trees, over the mountains and across the seas. There is a mystery in the wind that draws us in, beckoning us to listen closely, to hear the stories that are carried on its currents. In the quiet moments before dawn, when the wind still moves through the night, it seems to hum with an energy that is beyond the understanding of the human mind. This is the time when the natural world and the spirit world touch, if only for a moment. The wind becomes the vehicle for magic, carrying it from one place to another, from one world to another, in the most subtle of ways. The midnight wind also holds a deeper, darker secret. In some traditions, it was believed that the wind could bring with it the spirits of those who had passed violently or tragically. These were the souls who could not find peace, whose spirits were too restless to move on. They would ride the wind, their cries carried through the darkness, seeking to find a way back to the living, or simply to make their presence known. These angry spirits, often associated with death by violence or misfortune, were believed to leave an unsettling energy in their wake. The wind could carry their sorrow, their anger, and their unfinished business, and it would carry it not just to the ears of those who listened, but to the very hearts of those who felt the chill it brought. It is said that in the deepest moments of the witching hour, when the midnight wind blows strong, the dead speak most loudly. Their voices, faint whispers, can be heard in the howling gusts, rising up from the ground beneath us. The restless souls, long trapped between the worlds, are said to use the wind to make their presence known, to seek answers, or simply to remind the living of their existence. Some cultures believe that on Halloween night, the spirits of the dead would ride the wind, coming into contact with the living to pass along messages or warnings. And yet, For all the darker whispers the wind carries, there is also something beautiful in its movement. The midnight wind is not only the messenger of grief and sorrow, but the carrier of remembrance and connection. For in the act of listening to the wind, we are reminded of the continuity of life, of the thread that binds the living to the dead, of the stories that live on in our hearts, and of the spirits who never truly leave. The wind, in its ceaseless motion, is a reminder that life and death are not separate but intertwined, existing together in the delicate balance of nature. As the wind moves through the trees and across the fields, it carries with it the power of transformation. It is said that the wind, when it blows most fiercely on Halloween, can carry away the past, sweeping it into the ether and clearing the way for new beginnings. The wind becomes a purifier, a force that can cleanse the soul and bring clarity to those who listen. For those attuned to the world of spirits, the midnight wind can bring a sense of renewal, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is always the possibility for change, for rebirth, and for release. As the night wanes and the witching hour begins to retreat into the shadows, the midnight wind begins to die down, its whispers fading with the first light of dawn. The spirits too begin their retreat, returning to the realms from which they came, leaving the living world to sleep. The wind, once so charged with the magic of the night, returns to its usual rhythm, carrying the whispers of the day and the sounds of the waking world. But in the stillness that remains, after the wind has calmed, something lingers. It is as though the air itself is remembering what has just passed. The touch of the unseen world, the whispers of spirits, the energy that once moved through the night. And as the last remnants of the midnight wind fade into the horizon, we are left with the quiet knowledge that we have witnessed something sacred, a moment in time when the worlds of the living and the dead met and spoke, carried on the breath of the night. And as the wind slows, we know that its magic will not be forgotten, for it is always there, moving just beneath the surface, waiting to speak again when the time is right. Chapter 6. The Power of Shadows. As the witching hour moves deeper into the night, the world grows stiller, and yet it seems to pulse with an energy that is both familiar and strange. The shadows stretch and shift, as if they have a life of their own. They seem to grow longer with every passing moment, their forms bending and twisting in the dim light of the moon. There is something undeniably magical in the way the darkness moves on Halloween night, something ancient, something that reaches back through time, to an era when the night was not feared but revered. The power of shadows is not just the absence of light, it is the presence of something far more profound. It is a force that shapes the landscape of Halloween, infusing the night with both mystery and danger. Throughout history, shadows have been associated with the unknown, with things that cannot be seen or understood, and often with magic itself. Shadows hold a certain power, an ability to conceal, to obscure, to keep hidden what is meant to remain unseen. They serve as a constant reminder that the world we know is not all that exists. There is something more, something that waits just beyond the edge of the light. And on Halloween night, when the witching hour is at its peak, the shadows are more alive than ever. They stretch across the landscape, reaching into corners and spaces that daylight could never touch. The air grows thick with their presence, and the energy of the night feels almost tangible, as though the world itself is holding its breath. The moon, hanging high in the sky, casts long beams of light, but these beams are fractured by the branches of trees, the walls of buildings, and the very earth beneath our feet. Where the light touches, the shadows retreat, but where it does not, they remain, watching, waiting. It is in these spaces, the places where the light fails to reach, that the true power of shadows lies. Shadows are magical in their ability to conceal, to distort, to hide what is real, and to reveal what is hidden. In their depths, the world takes on a different shape, one that exists only for those who are brave enough to peer into it. As the night presses on, the air grows colder, and the shadows seem to gather around us, growing in intensity. It is in these moments, when the world seems to recede into darkness, that the unseen forces of the night come to life. The spirits that walk among us are drawn to the shadows. The restless souls that roam the earth seek refuge in their cover, as though the darkness offers them a safe haven from the world of the living. The shadows are not only the realm of the dead, but also the domain of magic, where witches and sorcerers work their most powerful spells. In the ancient rituals of the witching hour, shadows were not merely an obstacle to be avoided, they were seen as an integral part of the ritual itself. Witches, practitioners of magic, and shamans from many cultures knew the importance of shadows in their ceremonies. To be surrounded by shadows was to be protected, to be hidden from prying eyes, and to be in tune with the deepest, most primal forces of nature. In the absence of light, the witch could connect with the earth itself, calling upon its secret powers, its hidden energy. The moonlight, although bright, only served to illuminate a small portion of the world. It was the shadows that held the truth of the night, the power that could not be seen but was always present. On Halloween night, shadows seem to merge with the very fabric of the world around us. The boundaries between the physical world and the spirit world blur, and in these moments, the magical power of the night reaches its peak. Shadows take on a life of their own. They stretch and flicker, seemingly dancing with the rhythm of the night, shifting as though they are alive. It is said that during the witching hour, the shadowy figures we see are not merely tricks of the light, but the spirits themselves. Figures that move between worlds, unseen but always present. These spirits are said to live in the shadows, to be drawn to the places where light fails to penetrate, where the unseen forces of the night are strongest. It is also in the shadows that we find the most powerful magic. Witches, throughout history, have known that the shadows are where the strongest spells are cast. The darkened spaces, behind closed doors, beneath the surface of the earth, in the corners of rooms, are the places where the hidden power of the world resides. To work magic in the shadowed world is to work in harmony with the earth's most ancient and powerful forces. The shadows are not simply a place of concealment, but a realm of their own, a realm that exists alongside the world of the living, where the forces of life, death, and magic are intertwined. The shadow magic that flows through the witching hour is not an inherent evil, as it is sometimes portrayed. It is simply untamed, raw, and untouched by the light of the sun. The shadows hold the power of the unknown, of transformation, of creation and destruction. It is said that the witch who masters the shadows can bend them to her will, calling upon the forces of the night to create, to destroy, or to transform. The shadow, in its most primal form, is a symbol of change, of things hidden and revealed, of the world being reshaped by forces beyond our understanding. As the hour grows later, the shadows seem to grow even deeper, more pronounced. The flickering of candles casts dancing shadows across the ground, and the soft rustling of the wind through the trees sends the shadows into a quiet dance. They move with an eerie grace, as though they know something we do not, as though they are leading us towards something just beyond our reach. It is in these moments, when the shadows stretch far and wide, that we are reminded of the thinness of the veil between the living and the dead. Some say that the shadow figures that move in the corners of our vision are not merely tricks of the mind, but are spirits spirits of those who have passed, who are drawn to the magic of the hour, moving silently among us in the spaces between light. These spirits, whether benevolent or malevolent, walk in the shadows, their energy feeding off the night's magic, their presence marked only by the subtle shifting of the darkness. They are part of the night, part of the unseen forces that dwell in the realms of the unknown. The shadow's power is quiet yet profound. It is not loud or brash, but subtle, like a soft whisper in the night. It calls us not to act hastily, but to listen, to feel, to pay attention to the quiet pulse of the world around us. The shadows on Halloween night are not simply a place to hide. They are a place to observe, a place to connect with the deeper magic of the world. The night's darkness, in all its mystery, asks us to see beyond the surface, to embrace the unknown, and to understand that the world is not always as it appears. As Halloween night winds on, the power of shadows becomes even more profound. The spirits, the magic, the hidden forces of the world are drawn into their depths, moving between worlds with grace and silence. The shadows are not simply an absence, but a presence that exists side by side with a world of light, yet carries within it the deepest, most powerful forces of nature. They are the forces of creation, of destruction, and of transformation. The forces that guide us into the night, leading us into the unknown, where the mysteries of life and death intertwine. As the witching hour begins to wane, the shadows begin to fade, slowly receding into the night. But even as they disappear, they leave behind their energy, their power, and their secrets. The shadow, like the night, is never truly gone. It lingers, waiting to return, waiting for the moment when the veil will thin again, and the magic of the witching hour will rise once more. Chapter 7. The Fae and Otherworldly Visitors. As the night stretches deeper into the witching hour, the moonlight grows sharper, casting its cold, silvery glow across the land. The stillness of Halloween is like the calm before a storm, an eerie quiet that feels alive, full of whispers and forgotten things. It is in this space, where the boundary between the living and the dead begins to blur, that something else stirs, something old and often forgotten. Beyond the world of human spirits, beyond even the shadows, there are beings who move in the twilight hours, slipping between the realms with a grace that is both mysterious and dangerous. These are the Fae, the magical, mystical creatures who, on Halloween night, find themselves walking freely between worlds, caught in the thinning veil that separates the mundane from the supernatural. The Fae, sometimes known as the Fair Folk, are beings who inhabit the borders between this world and the next. They are not of the living, nor the dead, but exist in a realm that is not entirely of either. The Fae live in places where the boundaries between the physical and the spirit world are porous, where the laws of time and space are bent and twisted. On Halloween night, when the veil between the worlds is at its thinnest, the Fae slip through, their presence like a soft breeze, a fleeting glimpse of something impossible, something that doesn't quite belong in our world. The Fae are not the only otherworldly visitors to walk the earth on Halloween. The night also invites the Alsi, a race of ancient spirits believed to be the ancestors of the Fae. The Alsi are said to be the guardians of the spirit world, the protectors of the sacred places where the veil between the worlds is weakest. Their power is ancient, and they are said to carry the wisdom of the ages, passed down through generations of spirits. On Samhain, the night that marks the transition from one cycle of life to another, they walk among us, observing, waiting, and perhaps offering their guidance. But the Fae in particular are creatures of both light and dark, elusive, playful, and sometimes mischievous, their true intentions often hidden beneath layers of charm and beauty. To the untrained eye, they might appear as nothing more than a flicker of light in the corner of a room, a shadow in the distance, or a whispered laugh in the wind. Yet, for those who are attuned to the mystical rhythms of the world, the Fae reveal themselves more clearly, though always with an air of mystery, as if they are constantly just out of reach. On Halloween night, when the veil is at its most fragile, the otherworldly visitors find their most powerful moment of the year. The world of the living and the realm of the Fae intermingle, and for a brief, precious time, the boundaries between human and otherworldly creatures dissolve. The moon, high and cold in the sky, casts its glow on the earth, illuminating the hidden spaces, the quiet woods, the darkened corners of gardens, the forgotten groves and meadows. It is in these spaces that the Fae feel most at home, their presence woven into the very fabric of the land. The Fae are said to be drawn to these liminal places, the thresholds between realms, where magic and mystery still hold sway. They are guardians of the thresholds, beings who can move freely between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. They are keepers of the passage, the ones who know how to walk the narrow path between life and death, day and night, light and dark. And on Halloween, when the veil thins, the Fae are at their most active, stepping lightly into our world to observe, to guide, and sometimes to test those who dare to walk the night. There are many tales of the mischief the Fae are capable of, stories of travellers lost in the woods, lured by the soft glow of fairy lights, only to find themselves in a land far removed from their own. They might find themselves walking in circles, unable to escape, or they might be shown strange and wondrous sights that are more beautiful and terrifying than anything they could have imagined. These are the tricks of the Fae, the playful, sometimes dangerous games they play with the living, testing their ability to distinguish between the natural and the supernatural, the seen and the unseen. Yet, for all their tricks, the Fae are not simply playful creatures. They are deeply tied to the forces of nature and the cycles of life and death. The Fae, like the moonlight that guides them, are creatures of transition, of transformation. They exist in the spaces where one thing ends and another begins, where worlds collide and new possibilities are born. On Halloween, when the line between the living and the dead blurs, the Fae are believed to move through the world like shadows, neither fully visible nor entirely hidden, a delicate balance between light and dark, life and death. Perhaps the most famous of the Fae are the Tir na Nog, the land of eternal youth, where the spirits of the dead live on in peace. It is said that on Halloween, the Fae return to this otherworldly realm, taking with them the souls of those who have passed, guiding them gently into the next phase of existence. The Fae are seen as protectors of the dead, guiding their souls into the afterlife, but they are also seen as teachers, those who show the living how to walk the path between the worlds, how to navigate the mysteries of life and death. But not all encounters with the Fae are benevolent. There are stories of mortals who, through their own curiosity or foolishness, offend the Fae, leading to curses and misfortune. The Fae are known to take offence easily, and when angered they can punish the living in ways that are both mysterious and devastating. It is said that a simple offering, such as a gift of milk, honey or bread, left in a secluded spot on Halloween night, can placate the Fae, ensuring their favour. The price of offending the Fae is often steep, bringing misfortune, illness, or even madness. As the night continues to deepen, the Fae and otherworldly visitors move freely through the shadows, their presence felt but rarely seen. They dance along the edges of our perception, flickering like light through the trees, leaving behind traces of magic that linger long after they've gone. There is a sense of dread and wonder that follows their passage, an awareness that the world is not as it seems, that there are forces at play far greater than what the eyes can see. In the stillness of the witching hour, when the world has fallen into a deep, reverent quiet. The Fae are the silent witnesses to the transition of life and death. They move between realms, and for a brief moment they share their magic with us. They remind us that the world we see is but a shadow of something much more intricate, much more mysterious, and much more powerful than we could ever understand. But as the night begins to give way to the first hints of dawn, the Fae withdraw into the folds of the world. They slip between the cracks of reality, returning to their hidden places where the veil remains thick and the magic is thickest. The witching hour wanes, and the world of the living and the otherworldly visitors must part once again, until the next Halloween, when the veil will thin again and the Fae will walk among us once more, and in the soft, lingering silence of the night, we are left with the memory of their visit, faint, elusive, but undeniable, a reminder that magic is always close by, hidden in the spaces between the worlds. Chapter 8. The Veil Between Worlds. As Halloween night continues to unfold, the very essence of the witching hour begins to grow deeper, and time itself seems to stretch, slowing almost to a crawl. It is in this moment, as the clock strikes the late hours of the night, that the veil between the living and the dead becomes not just thin, but almost imperceptible. There are moments when the world itself seems to blur, where the boundary between this life and the next becomes so fragile, so permeable, that the air hums with the energy of the unseen. In the stillness of the witching hour, we're no longer simply inhabitants of the world of the living. We are standing on the threshold of something far older and far more mysterious, the very veil between worlds. On Halloween, the veil between worlds, which separates the living from the dead, becomes a tangible force. It is said that on this night, the boundary between the material world we see around us and the unseen realms of the spirit world is at its thinnest. The souls of the departed are believed to roam freely, slipping through the veil and walking among us. The air is alive with energy, as if the world itself is on the cusp of a great transformation, a point where time bends and history touches the present. For the spiritually attuned, Halloween is more than just a celebration of the dead. It is a moment of crossing, when the distance between the living and the dead is almost non-existent. The concept of the veil between worlds is an ancient one, deeply woven into the spiritual traditions of many cultures. It represents the threshold between this life and the next, the space where the living and the dead can meet and where magic flows freely. Many ancient cultures, including the Celts, believed that the veil was at its thinnest during Samhain, the precursor to Halloween. On this night it was thought that the spirits of the dead returned to visit their loved ones, and that the boundary between the material world and the other world grew fragile. In these moments, when the veil was at its weakest, it was believed that the spirits of the ancestors could cross over and walk among the living, offering guidance, warnings, or simply comfort. This belief is not just confined to the Celts. Many cultures have similar traditions, where they honour their ancestors and the dead during times of transition. The Day of the Dead in Mexico, for example, marks a time when the souls of the deceased return to the world of the living. In some Native American traditions, there is the idea of a spirit world where ancestors linger, watching over the living, occasionally passing through the veil to offer counsel or warnings. In these traditions, the veil is not merely a barrier, it is a bridge, a means of connection, a way for the living to receive the wisdom of the dead. But on Halloween night, this bridge becomes even more fragile. As midnight approaches, it is said that the veil between worlds is thinnest, and it is in these moments that spirits are most likely to return, whether to offer their guidance or to seek the unfinished business they left behind. The veil is no longer something abstract. It is something we can feel. It's in the quiet rustle of the leaves, the cold touch of a sudden breeze, or the faint echo of a long-forgotten voice. It is the shiver that runs down your spine when you feel the presence of something unseen. The veil is alive, vibrating with the energy of those who have crossed over and those who are waiting to cross. The veil, however, is not only a passage for the spirits of the departed, it is also a doorway for the forces of magic. Witches, both ancient and modern, have long understood the significance of the veil and the thinness of its fabric. During the witching hour, when the world is steeped in magic, the veil offers a powerful gateway for those who practice the craft. The energy that passes through the veil during Halloween night is fueled by ancient forces drawing upon the spirits of the past, the elements of the earth, and the cosmic rhythms of the universe. For witches, this is a time when their power is magnified, when the connection between the earthly realm and the spirit world is most profound. Many witches believe that during the witching hour, when the veil is thinnest, they can channel energies from the spirit world to enhance their spells, or perhaps even make contact with spirits directly. These rituals, performed in the deep hours of the night, are said to invoke both the ancient wisdom of the dead and the raw, untamed forces of the earth itself. Witches have long believed that Halloween night is a time for transformation, not just the transformation of the physical world, but also of the spirit. It is a time to commune with the unseen forces of the universe, to harness the power of the veil to shape and mold the world around them. In these deep hours, the spirits are not the only beings to pass through the veil. Alongside the ancestral spirits, there are otherworldly visitors, creatures of the night that slip between the realms. The Fae, those magical beings who exist in the spaces between the living and the dead, are particularly drawn to the thinning veil. On Halloween, the Fae are said to move freely between realms, visiting the living and the dead, bringing their magic, mischief, and ancient wisdom. Their presence, like the spirits, is both beautiful and unsettling, a reminder that there is much more to the world than meets the eye. The veil itself is not an entity or a force, but rather a gateway, a place of transition. It is a space where time itself seems to warp, where the rules that govern the living world bend and shift. Time feels different during the witching hour, as if the hours themselves are folding in upon themselves. The veil makes past, present, and future merge into one, creating a timeless moment where the boundaries between all things blur. This is why Halloween night and the witching hour is so often regarded as a time of profound transformation, a time when both the living and the dead can step beyond their limits. But the veil is not something that can be traversed lightly. It requires great care and intention to move between the worlds. For those who approach the veil with reverence, the rewards can be immense. The spirits can offer their guidance, the magic can be harnessed, and the mysteries of the universe can be revealed. But for those who approach recklessly or with disrespect, the veil can also become a place of great danger. The spirits may not offer their help. Instead, they may offer something darker, something that is not easily undone. The Fae, too, can be unpredictable. For all their playful charm, they are creatures of the otherworld, bound by rules that humans do not understand. As the night progresses and the veil between worlds grows thinner, the air becomes charged with energy. It is as though the entire world is holding its breath, waiting for something to unfold. The spirits that have crossed over, the witches that work their magic, and the creatures of the otherworld are all drawn to the energy of the hour. They move silently, but their presence is felt deeply, a soft vibration that moves through the air, through the trees, and through the very earth beneath us. When the veil is at its thinnest, it is as though the entire universe is one breath, one collective moment of stillness, waiting for something to happen. And for those who are awake, who are listening, who are attuned to the magic of the night. There is a deep sense that this is a moment of great potential, a moment when anything is possible. As Halloween night wanes, the veil begins to close, and the world of the living becomes once again separate from the world of the dead. The spirits and the creatures of the other world slowly retreat, their magic fading with the first light of dawn. But even as the veil recedes, the knowledge remains, the sense that for a time we were part of something far older and far more mysterious than we could ever fully understand. And as the first light of morning breaks across the horizon, we're left with the quiet knowledge that the veil, while closed for now, will always be there, waiting for the next time when it will once again thin and the worlds will cross once more. Chapter 9. The Silent Witness of the Moon. As Halloween night drifts deeper into the witching hour, there is a presence above, a constant silent witness to all that transpires beneath. The moon, glowing cold and distant, illuminates the landscape in its ethereal light, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the earth. In the stillness of the night, the moon is not merely a celestial body but a guardian, a silent keeper of time and magic. Its pale glow reveals the world in a way that feels both familiar and dreamlike, as though the boundaries between reality and the supernatural are softened by its light. The moon is often regarded as a symbol of the feminine divine, associated with cycles, intuition, and the hidden rhythms of the earth. In many cultures, the moon has been a guide, its phases marking the passage of time, the flow of life, death, and rebirth. On Halloween night, when the veil between worlds is at its thinnest, the moon becomes an especially sacred witness to the events of the witching hour. It watches silently as the spirits of the departed return, as witches and practitioners of magic call upon the unseen forces, and as the forces of light and shadow intertwine in the dance of the night. Throughout history, the moon has been tied to magic, mysticism, and the supernatural. The full moon, in particular, is seen as a time of great power, a time when the forces of nature are at their peak, and the veil between worlds becomes especially fragile. Witches have long understood the potency of the full moon, using its light to guide their spells and rituals. In many traditions, the moon's light is believed to enhance the power of magic, making it a sacred time to call upon the spirits, cast spells, or perform rituals that seek to transform the world around them. But the moon's role during the witching hour is not just one of illumination. It is also a silent witness to the unseen forces at work, to the crossing of boundaries between the living and the dead. On Halloween, the full moon casts its light on the world, not only revealing the surface of things, but also uncovering the hidden mysteries that lie beneath. Its light creates clarity where there is darkness, but it also casts long shadows, revealing the hidden and the unseen. As the spirits of the dead walk among us, the moon shines its light on their paths, guiding them as they move between worlds. In the darkness, where they might otherwise be lost, the moon's light allows them to find their way. The moon is, in many ways, a mirror, a reflection of the night's deepest energies. It reflects the mystical cycles of the universe, the ebb and flow of life, death, and everything in between. Its phases mark the passing of time, the waxing and waning of power, the quiet dance of the cosmos. And as Halloween night unfolds, the full moon becomes the steady, unwavering presence that guides the magic of the hour. It is a reminder that while the world may seem chaotic, spinning on its axis through time and space, the moon remains constant, silent, and eternal. There is a special quality to the moonlight on Halloween. As the night stretches on and the witching hour deepens, the full moon appears to glow brighter, sharper, its light taking on a cold, otherworldly hue. This moonlight seems to reveal a world that is both familiar and alien, like a dream that hovers just on the edge of comprehension. Under its glow, the earth becomes a place of mystery, a world where the boundaries between the living and the dead, the known and the unknown, are erased. The moon's light makes the world appear both clear and unclear, casting long shadows that move and shift, and creating a space of transition, a space where anything can happen. For the spirits that walk the earth on Halloween night, the moon is a guide. Its light is not only a beacon that leads them home, but also a marker of time. The moon, in its silent wisdom, knows when the hour is right for the spirits to return and when it is time for them to recede into the shadows once more. The spirits are drawn to the moon, to its light, for it marks their time. Just as the full moon influences the tides of the ocean, so too does it influence the movement of the spirit world. When the moon rises, it is time for the spirits to come forward and walk among the living. The moon's relationship with the night is both practical and symbolic. On Halloween, its light not only illuminates the land, but awakens the magic that is woven into the very fabric of the universe. The forces of nature, of life and death, are guided by the moon's cycles. Its light brings balance, a balance between the forces of the living and the dead, a balance between the light and the dark. As the moon casts its glow across the earth, it reveals a world where the two worlds, those of the living and the dead, are not separate but intertwined. The moon is the silent keeper of these worlds, a guardian of the balance between life and death. As midnight gives way to the early hours of the morning, the moon continues to shine, its cold light casting eerie shadows across the land. Its presence, though silent, is always felt. Even as the witching hour draws to a close, the moon remains a steady witness to the unfolding of the night's magic. Its light lingers long after the spirits have returned to the other side, long after the witches' rituals have ended, and long after the veil between worlds has begun to thicken once again. The moon's light will remain until the dawn, a final beacon of the night's mystery, a reminder of the power that lies within the darkness. The moon is a constant in a world of change. It is a symbol of the eternal, of the cycles of nature, and of the mysteries that bind the universe together. On Halloween night, when the veil between worlds is thinnest, the moon becomes a bridge, a passage between the living and the dead, between the seen and the unseen. It is through the moonlight that we are reminded that the world we see is just a fraction of the reality that exists around us, an infinite web of energies, forces and spirits that we can barely begin to comprehend. But as the first hints of dawn approach, the moon begins its slow descent, its light fading into the horizon. The witching hour begins to wane, and the spirits begin their journey back to the other world, leaving the living world behind. Yet, even as the moon fades from view, its presence lingers in the stillness of the night. The magic of Halloween, like the moon, remains, a silent witness to the night's events, a reminder that the boundaries between worlds are never truly as fixed as they appear. The magic of Halloween, and the power of the moon that guided it, will return again, as it always does, with the next cycle of the Earth's rhythms, and in the quiet after the moon's light fades, we are left with a sense of wonder, a sense that we have witnessed something both ordinary and extraordinary. The moon, that eternal sentinel in the sky, has watched over the night, guiding us through the mystery, and it will continue to do so long after we've returned to the waking world. Chapter 10: The Echo of Forgotten Rituals. As the witching hour gently winds down, and the moon's silvery glow begins to fade beneath the horizon, the air holds a different kind of stillness. The spirits that once walked among us slowly return to their world, and the energy of Halloween night starts to recede. The veil, which had been so thin, begins to thicken once more, drawing the worlds of the living and the dead back into their separate realms. Yet, though the magic of the hour begins to fade, there is a sense that something lingers, a presence, a memory of what has just passed, like the final echo of a song that has been sung and is now fading into silence. The rituals of the night, those secret and ancient acts that have been passed down through generations, continue to echo in the stillness. Even as the world returns to its normal rhythm, the rituals of Halloween, the offerings left for spirits, the prayers whispered in the dark, the spells cast under the moonlight, still reverberate in the air. These rituals, though simple in their form, are woven into the fabric of the earth itself, tied to the ancient cycles of the seasons, the life and death of the land, and the ever-turning wheel of the year. The importance of ritual, especially on a night like Halloween, is deeply rooted in the need for connection to the past, to ancestral memory, and to the unseen forces that shape our world. Halloween, and the witching hour in particular, has always been a time for the living to honour the dead, to offer gratitude, and to seek guidance from those who have passed. The rituals are a way of acknowledging that life and death are not separate but intertwined, and that the power of the dead is not something to fear, but something to honour. These rituals are not only performed by witches or spiritual practitioners, they are part of the fabric of Halloween itself. The act of carving a jack-o'-lantern, of leaving a bowl of candy at your door, of lighting a candle in memory of a loved one, each of these small actions is a ritual in itself, a way of invoking the magic of the night and honouring the spirits that roam the earth. These actions, though simple, are a part of the ancient rituals of Samhain, rituals that have been practiced for centuries, long before they became commercialised or diluted by modern customs. In many ways, the rituals of Halloween are forgotten rituals, carried out without thought, passed down through generations as part of a tradition we rarely stop to question. Yet, even in their simplicity, they hold deep power. The carving of the pumpkin, for example, is a ritual that dates back to ancient times, when people carved turnips to ward off evil spirits and guide their loved ones' souls safely home. Today, the pumpkin still serves as a symbol of protection and a beacon for the spirits, its flickering candlelight casting shadows on the walls, keeping the darkness at bay. It is not just the material acts of carving pumpkins or dressing in costumes that are ritualistic, but the very spirit of Halloween itself, a time when we allow ourselves to acknowledge that the boundary between life and death is never as firm as we like to believe. Halloween is a time of transition, a time when we stand at the edge of two worlds and peer into the unknown. The rituals of the night remind us that the passage of time, the cycle of life and death, is a sacred thing. We perform these rituals not just to protect ourselves or to have fun, but to honour the delicate dance between life and death that takes place every day, whether we see it or not. As the clock ticks toward the early hours of the morning, the world around us seems to shift back to normal, shadows retreating, the air growing still. The spirits too retreat into the darkness, returning to their world beyond the veil. But even as they vanish, their presence lingers in the silence. Their whispers remain in the corners of the room, in the stillness of the night. What was once real, what we have felt so deeply, now becomes a memory, a part of the vast, invisible fabric that binds all things together. Halloween night and the witching hour have a way of leaving their mark on the soul. Even as the night fades into the first light of morning, there is a sense that something has changed, something that cannot be easily explained. It is as if the ritual itself has left behind a trace, a lingering, elusive memory that continues to echo in the heart long after the festivities have ended. The rituals of Halloween remind us that we are part of something larger than ourselves, a vast and mysterious world where the lines between life and death are not as distinct as we think. They remind us that the dead are not truly gone, but remain close, watching, guiding and waiting for the moment when the veil will again grow thin. And like the spirits of the night, we too will return one day to pass through the veil, leaving our own mark on the world, our own echoes in the fabric of time. And so, as the last echoes of the witching hour fade and the first light of dawn breaks across the horizon, we are left with a sense of both finality and continuity. The rituals of the night, the spirits we have honoured, the magic we have touched, all return to their resting places, waiting to rise again. The night, though it has passed, is not forgotten. Its whispers remain with us, carried on the wind, carried in the soft rustle of the leaves. And as we stand at the edge of the waking world, we are reminded that the veil between worlds is always there, waiting, watching, ready to thin again when the time is right. Until then, we carry with us the memory of this night, the sense that, for a brief moment, we stood between the living and the dead and felt the pulse of something far greater than ourselves. The rituals, the spirits, the magic, they will return next year, as they always do, when the moon is full and the veil between worlds becomes thin once more. Good night, and may the spirits of the night rest in peace until the veil calls them back again.